Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and I have here a Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1. It's an Android tablet with a 10.1-inch display. You could probably figure that out from the name. And in terms of the design, there's really not much to say because there's not much to look at. It's really small. It's really thin. It's sort of the defining characteristic is that it's the smallest and thinnest 10-inch Android tablet available right now. But let's take a quick look around. We've got speakers that are built into the left and right side, as opposed to being on the bottom or underneath the screen, and that actually does make it a little bit louder and easier to hear than a lot of tablets. They're pretty small speakers. You're not going to get a lot of bass resonance or anything, but for online talk radio, works really nicely. Music sounds okay, not great, but you know, if you don't want to use headphones, you don't have to with this particular device. On the bottom, we've got a proprietary dock here, which is a it comes with a USB adapter so that you can use it to charge, you can use it to connect to a computer and copy, transfer files, but a standard USB cable might have been nice. But this also works with docking stations, so you can plug it into a keyboard, for instance. The other side, just another speaker. On the top, we've got a headset jack and a volume rocker up and down, and a power button, and that's pretty much it. It's nice that the power button is fairly easy to find. It's just up here in the corner. Motorola Xoom had one on the back in sort of an awkward place where it was tough to feel it with your finger. On the back, we've got a 3-megapixel camera, autofocus with an LED flash. On the front is a 2-megapixel camera. And the back, there are two different versions. This one is the white model with a white glossy plastic finish. There's also sort of a brushed metal look that runs the same price, and it's a slightly better texture, feels nicer in the hand, I feel like. They're both pretty good, but I personally prefer the brushed metal, but Samsung sent me this version to review. The operating system is very similar to what you would get with the Motorola Xoom. It's Android 3.1, and ultimately Samsung's going to be pushing out a software update that allows you to run what they call TouchWiz 4.0 and some other applications. Right now, though, the experience is very similar to what you would get with the Motorola Xoom, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. TouchWiz 4.0 is going to include a sort of app panel at the bottom. It's going to include some custom widgets for social features and other things. It's going to come with the swipe keyboard and media hubs for downloading and purchasing movies, music, and so forth, and ebooks. But you know, the overall experience of just using the vanilla Android is not bad. And let's take a quick look around that. We've got recent apps menu, which in Android 3.1 lets you see more applications than you were able to see in earlier versions. There's support for certain widgets that will be resizable, for instance. So let's take a look at this widget, tap and hold, and we can stretch. And so Android 3.1 is a nice little improvement, and it's faster, much more responsive than Android 3.0. So it's nice that that Samsung was able to get Android 3.1 on this device, even though they shipped it without all the software that they plan to eventually make available through an over-the-air update. It doesn't have that unfinished feel that some devices do. For instance, the Motorola Xoom not only shipped originally with Android 3.0, but with a non-working SD card slot. There is no SD card slot on this device, and that's one thing that some people are going to find problematic. You can get it with 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes of memory, but if you want extra space for your music or movies or other files, that's pretty much it. You could maybe use a USB peripheral, but you need an adapter because of that proprietary dock at the bottom. So if you wanted to plug in a flash drive or a hard drive, you'd need an adapter or a wireless hard drive. Let's take a look at some of the apps. Overall, the performance feels very similar to me to the Xoom. The key difference is that because it's thinner and lighter, it weighs about 1.25 pounds and measures a third of an inch thick, it feels better in the hand. So when you're holding it, it doesn't feel as heavy here. Holding it this way, still, it feels a little bit wrong because it's so much longer than it is wide when you hold it in portrait mode, so it's not really the best view for looking at web pages or reading books or something. But the balance feels a lot nicer because it's not very heavy. The web browser is pretty fast. When I ran some benchmarks and looked at performance and JavaScript and CPU performance and GPU performance, it actually did not score as high as the Motorola Xoom, but in everyday performance, it really feels like a very similar device. So we've got pinch to zoom functionality. We've got the ability to pull up a keyboard. And you'll notice here that the keyboard is actually a little bit different than the standard keyboard. It looks like we're getting the mobile version. of the New York Times website here. Let's try... Again, we're getting mobile page. Is there a switch? Yes. So you can see it loads web pages pretty nicely. Now, in terms of that keyboard that I was talking about, you have a couple of different options here. You can use the standard Android keyboard, but here you'll notice a couple of differences. First of all, the keys are darker. There's 1, 2, 3 key here on the side, volume or a microphone icon for switching to voice input. If you switch to the Samsung keypad, the keys are lighter, a little bit easier to see. I originally thought that they were maybe a little bit larger, but they're not. They just sort of seem a little bit easier for typing. But we've got a caps lock key. Google, not a big fan of the caps lock key. If you like it, you've got that option here. You've got 1, 2, 3 buttons on both sides. No volume button here for some reason, though. So overall, I find that this keyboard's a little bit easier to use than the default Android Honeycomb keyboard. Both of them are much easier to use than the keyboards that you get with Android 2.2 or 2.3. When you blow that up to tablet size, I find touch typing's almost impossible. Touch typing's kind of hard here. 2-finger typing or even 4-finger typing's not too bad, but I have yet to find anything that works quite as well as the iPad for actually typing as if it were a full-size keyboard. So there's the web browser. Other things that are pretty nice on here, comic books. This is something that really does make more sense if you hold it up in portrait mode, and I'm using the Comixology app here, and you've got pinch to zoom, you can do a single panel view, although apparently not on this page. There we go. And it's a pretty great experience. So that single panel view is something that you pretty much have to do if you're using a smartphone-sized device. On a tablet, it's comic books look great, so I'm pretty happy with that one. And there's some other applications that really are starting to show up in the Android market that make great use of the screen real estate and the layout of Android tablets. So let me see if I can find the one I'm looking for here. So for instance, I downloaded today a concert application called Kello. I don't know, it's Q-U or Q-E-L-L-O, and it lets you watch concert videos, films, movies about musicians, and so forth. And you get clips with all of the different videos, or all of the different concerts for free. You have to spend $5 to rent a video if you want to watch the whole thing. They range from around an hour to an hour and a half, maybe even up to 2 hours. But the layout I just really like. It makes the experience of finding videos that you might want to look at pretty nice. We've got a sort of cover flow view here. We've got the 2D view. We can sort by genre if we want to. So here's the documentary films. And then when you go into the film view, again, it's really making use of the extra space that you have in an Android tablet. So there's still not a lot of apps that are designed specifically for Android tablets, but we're getting to the point where there are more than there used to be. So, you know, it's only a couple hundred as opposed to 100,000 that are available for the iPad. But if you get an Android tablet today, you're going to find a few more things that you can do with it than maybe you were able to do a couple of months ago. And that holds true not just for the Galaxy Tab, but also for the Motorola Zoom, the Acer Iconia Tab A500, the Asus ePad Transformer, and others. So, overall, decent performance. Very thin and light. I mean, the only thing that I have in around that even comes close is the iPod Touch, which is a little bit thinner. You can see the latest version of the iPod Touch, but it's also so much smaller and doesn't offer, you know, the extra screen size and the large battery and so forth. In terms of battery life, you're looking at around 10 hours with the screen on, almost indefinite with the screen off. One thing that performance-wise bugs me a little bit is that you still got a fairly long wait when you're rotating the screen. I've noticed that in some applications it goes faster than others, but overall it's not quite where it could be. So thinnest, lightest, reasonably fast, probably one of the best Android tablets available right now, but with a starting price of around $500, it still might not be for everybody. This is Brad Linder with Liliputing.